In the spring of 2020, construction workers in the Turkish city of Midyat were renovating an old building when a wall unexpectedly crumbled, revealing a narrow stone passage. At first, no one thought much of it, but what began as a minor curiosity soon turned into one of the most important archaeological discoveries in decades. The tunnel led into a vast underground space, carved directly into the bedrock. Chamber after chamber emerged, with ceilings intact, walls lined with ancient inscriptions, and even air shafts still functional. What they stumbled upon was not just a forgotten basement or shelter. It was the gateway to an entire underground city, untouched for centuries. Experts believe it may have been active for over 1,000 years, hiding beneath modern life. As more of the network was mapped, it became clear. This wasn't a small refuge, but a sprawling, multi-level labyrinth beneath a living city. And most shocking of all, it was hiding in plain sight, right below the feet of thousands of residents who never imagined what was below. But that was only the beginning. What archaeologists found deeper inside left even seasoned experts stunned. As researchers began documenting the underground complex beneath Midyat, estimates of its scale grew rapidly. The network stretches across more than 180,000 square feet, a staggering figure for something entirely hidden underground. Early surveys suggest it once housed up to 60,000 people. Unlike simple caves or tombs, this city had infrastructure, ventilation systems, communal rooms, places of worship, and long corridors that connected levels like arteries in a living body. There were wells carved straight into the stone, indicating that people could survive without ever going to the surface. Everything about the site pointed to long-term habitation. Some rooms bore signs of daily life: stone benches, food storage pits, and even what may have been meeting halls. The architectural planning was incredibly advanced for its time, with smoke dispersal chimneys and carefully angled escape routes. How such a feat was pulled off with hand tools remains a mystery, but one thing is certain: the builders weren't hiding for days. They were prepared to stay underground for months. Still, one question remained unanswered: why had no one ever heard of it? The discovery in Midyat wasn't announced right away. In fact, months passed before the public even knew the site existed. Why? According to insiders, local officials and researchers hesitated. The area was politically sensitive, and the implications of such a find were enormous. There were questions about who would take responsibility, how to protect the site, and whether it should be open to tourists or kept sealed for study. Some speculated that religious and political tensions also played a role. This region had been home to various empires, faiths, and ethnic groups over the centuries. Revealing a major underground city could spark disputes over history and ownership. Meanwhile, archaeologists worked in near silence, mapping what they could, all under tight security. It wasn't until word leaked to a few media outlets that global attention shifted to the site. Even then, official statements were cautious, offering only vague confirmations. This silence only deepened the mystery, fueling speculation. What was so controversial about a city buried in stone? And what, or who, had once lived down there? Among the most startling finds in the Midyat tunnels were symbols unmistakably tied to early Christianity. Crosses etched into walls, Greek inscriptions, and what appears to be a hidden chapel pointed to the city being a safe haven for persecuted Christians. Historians now believe the underground network was used during the 2nd and 3rd centuries when Roman rule forced many believers into hiding. Midyat is located in the Tur Abdin region, a known cradle of Assyrian Christian culture. The area has long been home to ancient monasteries and churches, and now, evidence suggests its faithful once fled below ground to survive. The stone chapel, though small, featured an altar and space for prayer, proof of an active religious life in complete secrecy. For many, this isn't just a historical discovery, it's a powerful story of resilience, where people kept their faith alive beneath the soil, out of reach from soldiers and oppressors. These tunnels weren't just homes, they were sanctuaries. But Midyat is only one chapter. Deeper in Turkey, a much older and even larger city lies buried under a modern town. In the heart of Turkey's Cappadocia region lies Derinkuyu, a town with an unremarkable surface, modest homes, narrow streets, and quiet life. But beneath it stretches one of the world's largest known underground cities. First opened in the 1960s after a resident knocked down a wall in his basement, Derinkuyu revealed itself layer by layer. Researchers discovered a city that plunged more than 200 feet underground, with 18 levels carved through volcanic rock. At its peak, Derinkuyu may have supported up to 20,000 inhabitants. The city included stables, kitchens, wells, schools, and even a large religious hall. Heavy stone doors could roll shut to seal each level in times of danger, and air shafts ensured ventilation. The builders, thought to be Phrygians or early Christians, constructed a self-sufficient world underground. Unlike Midyat, Derinkuyu has been studied for decades, but questions remain. How was such an engineering feat achieved without modern tools? And what made entire populations choose to disappear beneath the earth? The rediscovery of Derinkuyu didn't come from a planned excavation. It came from a man trying to renovate his home. In the early 1960s, a resident of Derinkuyu broke through a wall in his basement, expecting to find a small storage cavity or forgotten room. Instead, he found a tunnel leading into darkness. As he explored further, the passage opened into chambers with carved ceilings, deep wells, and stone doors. Word spread quickly, and soon archaeologists arrived. What followed was one of the most extraordinary urban discoveries in modern times. The entire city had been sealed for centuries, forgotten by locals, and absent from historical records. This accidental opening revealed a hidden layer of history lying just beneath everyday life. The idea that entire civilizations could vanish underground and be paved over by generations above isn't just fascinating, it's unsettling. How many other secrets lie beneath our feet, hidden behind basement walls and foundation stones? And Derinkuyu wasn't the last place where homes sat quietly above ancient passageways. In the city of Abarka, Iran, archaeologists investigating a group of historic homes stumbled upon something unexpected: an entire network of underground rooms. What began as a simple architectural survey turned into the uncovering of a subterranean complex with multiple levels. The rooms showed signs of long-term use, with arched ceilings, aqueduct-like structures, and thick walls designed to regulate temperature. Evidence suggests the network was used for both daily living and emergency shelter, possibly during times of invasion or extreme weather. Local oral traditions had long hinted at tunnels beneath the city, but until recently, no one had taken them seriously. Now, scholars are mapping a forgotten underground system that may change the understanding of pre-Islamic settlement patterns in the region. As excavation continues, one thing is clear: ancient Persians weren't just building up, they were also building down, and they were doing it with purpose, precision, and a clear understanding of their environment. But Iran and Turkey aren't alone. In Europe, layers of history run just as deep. Across Europe, cities rest atop forgotten structures, from ancient quarries to secret tunnels. In Paris, over 200 miles of catacombs twist beneath the modern skyline, originally limestone quarries, later repurposed as burial grounds. In Edinburgh, beneath the Royal Mile, lie the Mary King's Close tunnels, 17th century streets buried during urban redevelopment. And in Naples, locals lived for centuries atop a vast network of Greco-Roman aqueducts and cisterns, which later sheltered citizens during World War II bombings. These spaces weren't always hidden. Many were intentionally sealed off, their entrances erased from public view. Over time, buildings rose, streets formed, and generations forgot what was below. Today, some of these sites are tourist attractions. Others remain sealed, known only to researchers or passed down in urban legends. While not cities in the classical sense, these underground systems were once vital to life above. They are silent witnesses to wars, plagues, and the evolution of urban living. And in some places, they still hide unsolved mysteries. Prague, one of Europe's most storied capitals, holds secrets below its cobbled streets. Beneath the old town lies a labyrinth of medieval tunnels, some dating back to the 12th century. Originally built to connect cellars and storage areas, these underground paths evolved over centuries, expanding into networks used for escape, smuggling, and even hiding during invasions. Due to repeated flooding from the Vltava River, city planners in the 19th century elevated street levels, effectively burying the original ground floor of many buildings. What had once been entrances became underground chambers. Today, parts of these spaces are accessible through guided tours, while others remain bricked up or too dangerous to explore. Unlike purpose-built underground cities, Prague's passageways were born out of necessity and adaptation. Still, they offer a rare glimpse into how medieval citizens altered their environment to survive and thrive. Beneath the tourist routes and Gothic architecture lies a ghost city, one still whispering its past. But life underground was never easy. How did people endure complete separation from the surface? Living underground wasn't just a clever tactic, it was a brutal reality. For those seeking shelter in places like Derinkuyu or Midyat, sunlight was a distant memory. Residents relied on carefully designed ventilation shafts to bring in fresh air, and torches or oil lamps to provide light. Water came from deep wells dug directly from within the cities. Without natural seasons or day-night cycles, life took on a different rhythm. People developed methods to store food for months, using carved stone silos and cool chambers to preserve grain and vegetables. Communal kitchens were equipped with rudimentary chimneys to guide smoke through twisting vents, avoiding detection from above. Social life also continued underground, with schools, places of worship, and meeting halls allowing for a functioning society even in darkness. Yet the toll was undeniable. Mental fatigue, limited nutrition, and the constant threat of collapse or discovery made every day a test of endurance. These were not short-term shelters, they were fortresses of survival. But who built them? And how did they master such engineering without the tools we rely on today? The construction of ancient underground cities like Derinkuyu or Midyat was no accident of nature. It was deliberate, complex, and required enormous human effort. Archaeologists believe the earliest stages of Derinkuyu were dug by the Phrygians around the 8th or 7th century BCE, using basic iron and bronze tools. Later, early Christians expanded the site, adapting it to their needs. The builders worked with soft volcanic tuff, a rock that's easy to carve when freshly exposed but hardens over time, providing natural reinforcement. What's astonishing is the scale and planning involved. Long corridors, air shafts hundreds of feet deep, water systems, and defense mechanisms like sliding stone doors. There are no written records detailing the construction process, no blueprints, and few artistic depictions. But the precision of these works suggests advanced knowledge of engineering, geology, and urban planning. This wasn't primitive trial and error. It was architecture driven by survival, secrecy, and long-term vision. Still, one question remains. Why go to such extreme lengths to live underground at all? The decision to build entire cities underground wasn't driven by curiosity, it was driven by threat. Throughout history, communities in regions like Cappadocia and Upper Mesopotamia faced invasions, religious persecution, and harsh climates. Retreating underground offered protection from enemy armies, plundering raids, and even extreme weather. During the Roman era, early Christians sought refuge from systemic persecution, carving sanctuaries below the surface where they could live and worship in safety. In later centuries, Islamic invasions, Mongol raids, and regional conflicts kept the pressure on. Some areas also faced intense summer heat or brutal winters, making subterranean living a form of climate control. But underground life wasn't ideal. It was last resort survival, born out of necessity, not preference. These cities are monuments to the resilience of people forced into the shadows, entire societies choosing darkness over death. And yet, they endured, they adapted, they turned stone into sanctuary. Today, as we face new global threats, those ancient choices seem more relevant than ever. Modern architecture often looks upward towards skylines, height, and expansion, but ancient underground cities challenge that instinct. They remind us that innovation isn't always about building higher. Sometimes it's about adapting deeper. In places like Midyat, Derinkuyu, and Abarka, communities created self-sustaining systems with zero modern technology, cooling without electricity, water storage without pumps, and security without surveillance. As cities today face rising temperatures, overpopulation, and geopolitical instability, the logic behind these ancient designs suddenly feels timely. What if future resilience means thinking like our ancestors, learning from the silence of stone corridors and the genius of forgotten engineers? The underground cities don't just tell a story of survival, they pose a challenge to us today, to design with purpose, protect our people, and reimagine what shelter really means. In the end, the greatest secret buried beneath our cities may not be a chamber or tunnel, but a blueprint for endurance.